What's going on YouTube? What's going on YouTube? Welcome back everyone, this is Lee, and yes, today we'll be talking about the LAOWA 90mm 2.8 aperture lens. But right before we get started, don't forget to click like and subscribe, and also don't forget to check out the merch store. And with that out the way, the LAOWA 90mm 2.8 aperture lens, this is my first ever full frame LAOWA lens in the house. Yes, at 2.8, this is amazing. I was actually very interested to see the bokeh in this lens, but right before we get into the samples, let's take a look at some quick specs. Now, this lens costs 500 USD. It sports 13 elements. It has the Magnification ×2 magnification, and also it has the 67mm filter thread, and the minimum focus distance is 20.5. That's crazy. That's just up close and personal, but we'll definitely get into that. And this lens weighs about 619 grams. Now, for those folks that have been following me on my channel, you guys know that I have the Canon R5C, and it was just natural for me to use this LAOWA 90mm 2.8 on my Canon R5C. And for those folks that don't know this, the LAOWA lens don't have autofocus, so you definitely need your follow focus and your gears if you want to have a smooth transition when you're autofocusing. Well, you're not autofocusing, when you're focusing on your subject. So here is a B-roll film that I did at 2.8 up close and personal. Only 2.8 because I want to see the compression. I want to see that cinematic look, and the LAOWA did not disappoint me. This look that this lens is giving me looks very cinematic, and I was very pleased with the results. And that's for the video side of things. Now for the photo side of things, does this lens have chromatic aberration? It does not. In this power line test right here, usually at 2.8, you'll see chromatic aberration on the power lines and the power towers. It does not have any chromatic aberration. Now, when I'm shooting directly at the sun, you could definitely see that there is no flare. Absolutely no flare, but the image is of course washed out. So try not to shoot directly at the sun, of course. I was just trying to see if there was any flare, but if you take a closer look, you can see a slight tint of chromatic aberration. So just keep that in mind. Everything else seems to be very negligible. So that is very good because you could just fix that in post. Now, the bokeh at 2.8 seems like a cat's eyes, but after 2.8, everything seems to be more or less rounded. So just keep that in mind. The bokeh ball seems to get rounded around f4 and up. Now, let's take a look at the magnification. Yes, you guys want to see how close this lens can get to the subject. So first things first, this is the LAOWA 90mm 2.8 versus the 85mm f2 lens by Canon, and also it's a 0.5 magnification, and definitely the minimum focus distance is way beyond the LAOWA, of course. But here's the results. Definitely the LAOWA does better than the Canon 85mm, and this lens costs $600. Now, let's take a look at the LAOWA versus the Canon 100mm EF lens, and of course the magnification on this lens is 1. And let's take a look at the results. As you can see, the LAOWA is definitely a lot closer to the subject. Now, let's take a look at the Canon RF 100mm, and this lens is 1.4 magnification, and it costs roughly 1,400 USD. And here's the results. And as you can see, the LAOWA gets up close and personal than the Canon RF at 100mm, and this lens is $1,400. And this is at 2.8. If you're doing portrait photography, definitely this lens is really versatile in those situations for those people that have their participant, their model, just essentially posing, sitting still. If you're doing bust photos, this particular lens will definitely do the job. But if you're doing those quick movement fashion photography, this is probably not the lens for you. But if you're doing normal headshot, bust shot photography, definitely this lens will do the job. So just wrap things up, the LAOWA 90mm 2.8 aperture lens, this lens right here, it's phenomenal. I mean, this $500, you get up close and personal with that ×2 magnification. And keep in mind, definitely the competition out there, the only thing that they're offering right now is just autofocus. But when you're doing macro photography, I usually notice that the autofocus with these autofocus lenses they kind of don't autofocus that well, especially in the Sony world. The 90mm 2.8, that lens also didn't autofocus that well when it comes to macro photography. So with the LAOWA, if you're doing nothing but macro photography, I think the LAOWA 90mm 2.8 aperture lens is a steal at $500 USD. Just keep in mind that you don't have autofocus, you don't have image stabilization, and also there is no XF data. So this is just a pure macro photography lens. So just keep all that in perspective. So with all that said, thank you guys for checking me back. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely click like and subscribe, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, take it easy. Peace.